The day the world stopped for Hannah Grace. No one in the small town of Pinnebrook was prepared for what happened on the morning of December 2nd. It was a Sunday. Frost hugged the bare tree branches, the streets were quiet, and the sky glowed with a soft winter gray. People were just beginning to stir. Church bells chimed, coffee brewed in kitchens, and parents bundled their children in scarves and mittens. But in room 209 of Pinnebrook General Hospital, the world was about to witness something that would defy science, shock doctors, and forever rewrite one family's future. At exactly 6:42 a.m., after 39 grueling hours of labor, 27-year-old Anna Willis let out a final scream, the kind that echoes beyond walls and pierces hearts. Her husband, Jordan, gripped her hand with white knuckles. Tears streamed down his face, mixing with panic and awe. And then, silence. No crying, no breathing, just the stunned faces of doctors and nurses staring at the massive, unmoving newborn lying on the delivery table. Nurse Linda gasped and took a step back. Dear God, she's huge. The baby, with skin still flushed deep pink, lay still. Too still. The monitors began to beep. Erratic, wild, unpredictable. She's not breathing. Dr. Klein shouted, springing into action. Get the NICU team in here. Now. The mother, soaked in sweat and trembling from blood loss, tried to lift her head. What's wrong? What's happening to my baby? Her voice was fragile, cracked. The baby, a girl, was already bigger than any newborn they had ever seen at Pinnebrook. Weighing in at 18 pounds, 6 ounces, she looked more like a 3-month-old than a newborn. Thick rolls lined her arms. Her chest rose, barely, then stopped. Clear, a voice shouted, and the sound of a tiny defibrillator shot through the air like a gun. Jordan watched, helpless, as strangers fought to bring his daughter back to life. Anna sobbed, whispering the name she had held onto for months. Hannah. Hannah Grace. Come on, baby girl. And then, just as quickly as it began, a sound broke the tension. A tiny, low-pitched, growl-like cry filled the room. Not a newborn's cry. Not even close. The nurses froze. Dr. Klein dropped his pen. The baby had let out a roar, a sound that rattled the room and left everyone in stunned silence. And then, she opened her eyes. Wide, alert, deep stormy gray with gold flecks that shimmered like lightning behind clouds. She's breathing. The nurse shouted, tears forming in her eyes. She's breathing on her own. Anna wailed with joy. Jordan collapsed into a chair, shaking. Hannah Grace Willis had entered the world in a way no one had seen before. Not crying, but roaring. Not fragile, but powerful. And that was just the beginning. Teaser into the storyline. Doctors quickly realized that Hannah wasn't just unusually large. She was different. Her muscles were denser than they should be. Her growth rate was off the charts. Within hours, she was holding her head up. By day 2, she was gripping the rails of her bassinet. Medical teams ran tests, genetics, endocrine scans, neurological studies. They found anomalies, markers no one could explain. Not a syndrome, not a mutation, just something new. She's not unhealthy, one doctor murmured, staring at her latest scan. But she's not normal either. The town couldn't stop talking about it. News stations picked up the story. The giant baby of Pinnebrook, they called her. But Anna didn't care about the headlines. She only cared about keeping her daughter alive. Because behind the headlines, doctors had also discovered something terrifying. Hannah's heart was too strong, not in the figurative sense. Literally. It pumped harder than a child 3 times her size. Her veins carried blood at twice the normal pressure. Her muscles twitched even when she was asleep. If her growth continues unchecked, the specialists warned, her body may turn against itself. So the Willises were faced with an impossible truth. They had given birth to a miracle. But miracles come with consequences. And now, their battle had just begun. The weight of a miracle. The news spread like wildfire. Pennybrook was no longer just a sleepy town tucked beneath the shadow of the North Ridge Mountains. It was now home to the most talked-about newborn in the country. But inside room 207 of Pennybrook General Hospital, far from the news cameras, the Willis family sat in silence, surrounded by machines, fear, and love. Anna could barely sit upright. Her body was weak, stitched, and sore, but she refused to sleep. She kept her eyes locked on the plastic walls of the NICU incubator. Inside, her daughter lay wrapped in custom-cut blankets because nothing in the hospital fit her. Hannah Grace slept peacefully, too peacefully, as if unaware that the world around her was trying to figure out what she was. "I don't like how quiet it is," Anna whispered, her voice dry. Jordan sat beside her, still wearing the same jeans and flannel he'd arrived in 2 days ago. He hadn't gone home. He hadn't eaten anything besides vending machine crackers. His hands trembled as he reached for his wife's. "They said she's stable," he reminded her. "Breathing normal. Blood oxygen's good." Anna's lips tightened. "That's not what I mean. I mean it's too quiet. Nobody talks when they come in anymore. They just whisper, like they're afraid." She was right. The medical staff walked on eggshells. They treated Hannah like a wild animal in a glass cage. Precious, but unpredictable. A flurry of tests, scans, samples, and specialist consultations followed her first breath, but the answers were few and far between. On day 3, Dr. Mendez, a pediatric geneticist from New York, flew in to examine Hannah. She spent hours reading through charts, reviewing images, and measuring muscle mass and bone density. "This isn't just macrosonia," she said finally. "She's not just a large newborn. Her cells are replicating differently. Her muscle tissue has an abnormal density level for a newborn, closer to that of a toddler, even more in some areas." Jordan frowned. "What does that mean?" Dr. Mendez hesitated. "It means she's growing. Fast. Too fast." Anna straightened, pain rippling through her stitches. "Is it cancer?" "No. No signs of tumors. No malignancy," Mendez said quickly. "This is something else. Something unprecedented. The word no parent ever wants to hear. Unprecedented. It meant no guidelines, no treatment protocols, no roadmap. It meant they were alone. The unanswered questions. By day 5, Anna was discharged, but Hannah stayed in the hospital for observation. Anna refused to go home. The nurses converted an unused consultation room into a temporary sleep area, but Anna never used the cot. She stayed at her daughter's side, watching, praying, listening to the rhythmic hum of the machines. They'd brought in a high-level endocrinologist from Denver, a cardiac specialist from Chicago, and even a neurodevelopmental pediatrician from Johns Hopkins via video call. Every expert said the same thing. Hannah's body was not behaving like a newborn's. Her heart pumped at twice the normal rate, but not dangerously. Her bones had a strange calcium structure, harder, denser, yet still pliable. Her neural responses were lightning fast. At 6 days old, she responded to sounds with startling clarity, turning her head and blinking in rhythm to her mother's humming. "She tracks movement," one nurse whispered. "That shouldn't even be possible yet." By the end of the first week, the hospital had to order specialized equipment, custom-made bottles, clothing, and even new incubator settings. No one dared say it out loud, but they all thought the same thing. This child was something the world hadn't seen before. And yet, she smiled. A real, soft, goofy smile on the 7th night, when Anna softly sang the lullaby her mother once sang to her as a child. The smile wasn't random. It wasn't a reflex. It was real. The headlines that hurt. On the 8th morning, everything changed. A news crew from a national media outlet camped outside Pennybrook General. Somehow, a nurse's cousin had leaked Hannah's weight and condition to the press. The headline blared across the screen. "Monster Baby, or Myra Sully. Infant to be born at 18 pounds as to humans medical community. Anna's heart sank as she read the article. It wasn't just wrong. It was cruel. They called her daughter unnatural, a medical anomaly. One segment even joked that she might become a future Olympic weightlifter. "I'm pulling her from the hospital," Anna snapped. "We're done with this circus." But Dr. Klein, the lead pediatrician, begged them to wait. "She's safe here. The equipment, the monitoring. No one else is equipped to handle this. Please, Anna, give us time. We're not trying to exploit her. We're trying to understand her." Anna didn't respond. She just walked back into the NICU, pulled a blanket over Hannah's thick arms, and whispered in her ear, "You are not a headline. You are my daughter." A mother's battle. The stress took its toll. Anna's body, already worn thin from the long labor and difficult pregnancy, began to break down. She was diagnosed with postpartum preeclampsia, high blood pressure, and swelling that left her dizzy and exhausted. "You need rest," the nurses urged. "I need my baby," she countered. But she could no longer stand for more than 10 minutes without support. So Jordan stepped in. He stayed by Hannah's side while Anna recovered in a nearby room. And in those long, quiet nights, Jordan began to bond with the daughter he had barely dared to touch at first. He read her books, talked about the stars, told her stories of how he met her mom at a college bookstore when she dropped a copy of To Kill a Mockingbird, and he picked it up. "She was the smartest girl I ever met," he whispered one night, tracing the outline of Hannah's tiny, yet oversized, fist. "And now we have you. Somehow, the universe gave us both." Hannah blinked, eyes following the sound of his voice. And then, for the first time, she giggled. Signs of a storm. But not everything was as it seemed. On the 12th day, Hannah began to cry without reason. Long, guttural cries that didn't match the pattern of hunger or pain. Her heart rate surged. Her body temperature spiked, then dropped within minutes. "She's overheating," a nurse warned. "We need to cool her down. Fast." They placed her in a temperature-controlled pod. Her skin flushed bright red. Sweat poured from her brow, unusual for an infant. An emergency MRI revealed minor swelling around the hypothalamus, the part of the brain responsible for regulating temperature and metabolism. "She's growing too fast," Dr. Mendez said, frustration in her voice. "Her body is outpacing her brain's ability to regulate it." Anna felt a scream build in her throat. "How do we stop it?" she asked, clutching Jordan's arm. We don't know yet." The words cut like knives. The unseen visitor. That evening, after the chaos had settled, a quiet knock tapped on Anna's door. It was Dr. Eve Kaminsky, a retired pediatric researcher who had once worked on advanced genetic disorders for the NIH. She had read about Hannah and flown to Pennybrook on her own dime. "I think I've seen something like this before," she said, holding up a folder thick with old case notes. "Not the same, but close." Anna looked at the folder, then at the woman. "Why are you here?" "Because if I'm right," Dr. Kaminsky replied, "Hannah may not just be a miracle. She might be the key to understanding something bigger, something the medical world has ignored for too long." Anna's eyes narrowed. "She's not a science project." "No," Kaminsky said quietly. "She's hope, but hope needs protection. A choice to make." Dr. Kaminsky reviewed the labs, the scans, the growth charts. "She's developing with hypercellular replication, but her brain is adapting along with it. That's not just rare, it's impossible by current standards." Anna stood her ground. "She's not a lab rat. If you're here to dissect her life." "No," Kaminsky interrupted. "I'm here to help her live it." Over the next 2 days, Dr. Kaminsky worked with the medical team to create a specialized care plan. Hormone regulation therapy, a personalized growth tracker, and regular neurodevelopmental scans. They even designed a new custom monitor that would track Hannah's temperature and glucose levels in real time. And slowly, Hannah stabilized. Her body calmed. The unexplained surges stopped. Her weight gain slowed, and on the 15th day, the doctors finally gave the news Anna and Jordan had been praying for. You can take her home. The first step into the world. They left through the back entrance to avoid the cameras. The hospital gave them special car seat accommodations, and Hannah wore a custom-made onesie that read, "Stronger than I look." Neighbors gawked as they pulled into the driveway. News vans circled like vultures. But inside the house, it was peaceful, quiet, real. Hannah Grace lay in her crib, a room decorated in soft pastel colors, her name spelled across the wall in golden letters. Anna sat beside her, finally able to hold her daughter without wires or machines. Jordan placed a hand on her shoulder. "She's home." Anna nodded. "Yeah, but this isn't the end." "No," Jordan said. "It's the beginning." Outside the window, snow began to fall, light and quiet. A blank slate. Inside the nursery, a child unlike any other blinked up at the world. And somewhere in the depths of her mind, before she could even speak, something stirred. An awareness. A knowing. A purpose. Growing faster than the world can understand. The house was quiet. Too quiet. For a home with a newborn, the Willis residence in Pembroke should have been filled with late-night cries, diaper changes, and the usual newborn chaos. But Hannah Grace didn't cry at night. She barely cried at all. She slept through the night from week 3. She fed every few hours like clockwork, drank her bottle in under 60 seconds, and stared back at her parents with eyes that felt too knowing for a baby. Jordan would often joke, "I feel like she's watching me more than I'm watching her." But Anna wasn't laughing. Not anymore. Because while other parents were watching their babies try to sit up by month 4, Hannah was already walking. It had started innocently, just a pull on the couch cushion, a steady wobble of her legs. Then one afternoon while Anna was folding laundry, she turned around and found Hannah in the hallway. Standing, unassisted, balanced. Anna dropped the basket. "Hannah." The baby smiled, full, wide, and bright. Then took a step, then another. By the end of the week, she was pacing the living room, chasing the family dog, and opening drawers she shouldn't have been able to reach. She was 6 months old. The doctor's visit that changed everything. Dr. Kaminsky returned at the end of the 6th month. She had continued to review Hannah's charts from afar, quietly coordinating with specialists under the radar, keeping media away with legal pressure and a bit of retired government influence. Her connections were powerful, too powerful for a regular pediatric researcher. Anna had started to wonder. "You were more than just a doctor once, weren't you?" Anna asked as Kaminsky set up another portable MRI scan in the living room. Kaminsky didn't answer. She just gave a half-smile and said, "Hannah's not the first miracle I've seen, but she's the first one who's survived this long." Anna's breath caught in her throat. "What do you mean survived?" Kaminsky hesitated, then turned her laptop around. On the screen were grainy scans of other infants, charts, blood work, and disturbing autopsy reports from decades ago. They were rare, less than 1 in 10 million. Most didn't make it past a few months. Their bodies, burned out, too fast, too powerful. But Hannah, she's adapting. That's the difference. Anna stared at the images, tiny bodies with muscle patterns closer to athletes than infants. She blinked. Why her? Why now? Kaminsky didn't look away. "I think the world is changing. And Hannah, maybe the start of something new." Life in the public eye. Despite their best efforts, the media didn't forget. Every time Anna posted a harmless family picture online, even something as simple as Hannah in the park, someone leaked it. Comment sections flooded. "Is that really her? She looks like she's 3 already. That can't be real. This child needs to be studied. She's a genetic anomaly." Some were supportive. Most were cruel. Anna eventually deleted all her accounts. She stopped going to the grocery store. Jordan started working from home. They withdrew from everything and everyone. choosing a life of quiet isolation to protect their daughter. But Hannah didn't seem to mind. She loved the backyard. She'd stand barefoot in the grass, lifting rocks, chasing butterflies, talking in full sentences before most kids had learned to form two words together. By 10 months, she could recite full nursery rhymes from memory. At 11 months, she pulled a tree root out of the ground like it was a weed. Jordan stood frozen when he saw it. He called Anna out to the yard. They stared at their daughter, smiling, clapping, and holding a root that should have taken a grown man half an hour to dig out. They didn't speak. They didn't have to. Something was happening. The first fall. The turning point came on a rainy evening in November. The storm rolled in without warning, drenching the yard and turning the roads to mud. Inside the house, Hannah was playing with her blocks when she suddenly stopped and stared at the front door. Then, without a word, she walked to it. Anna noticed first. "Sweetheart, where are you going?" Hannah didn't answer. Her hand reached for the knob. Hannah. But it was too late. The door opened, and a gust of icy wind blew through the hallway, knocking over a lamp. Hannah stepped outside barefoot, into the storm, arms raised toward the sky. Anna screamed. Jordan rushed past her, scooping their daughter into his arms just as thunder cracked overhead. But it wasn't the storm that terrified them. It was Hannah. Her skin was hot, burning. Her eyes had gone from gray to golden, glowing faintly in the darkness. And she was whispering something. Words no one had taught her. Words in a language neither of them recognized. Jordan held her tighter. "What is she saying?" Anna grabbed her face, trembling. She's chanting something, like a prayer. But the moment passed. Within seconds, the glow in Hannah's eyes faded. Her temperature dropped. She blinked, looked around, and burst into tears like a regular baby, as if nothing had happened. What is she becoming? Back inside, Anna wrapped Hannah in warm towels and rocked her in silence. Jordan stared at the storm outside. "I think something's waking up in her," he said softly. "Something she doesn't even understand." Anna didn't answer. She just stared at her daughter's eyes, now soft and normal again. But the memory of the golden glow haunted her. The next morning, she called Dr. Kaminsky. Kaminsky answered on the second ring. "I saw the weather alert. Is she okay?" Anna's voice shook. She went outside in it, on her own. She wasn't scared. She changed. Kaminsky's silence was answer enough. "I need you here," Anna whispered. "I'm already on my way." A terrible truth. Dr. Kaminsky arrived the next day. She looked older, tired, worn down by whatever truths she had been holding back. "Anna," she said carefully, "I need to tell you something, and you're not going to like it." Anna held Hannah on her lap, her small body bundled in soft cotton pajamas. She looked peaceful, normal. But Anna knew better now. "She's not the only one like this, is she?" she asked. Kaminsky nodded slowly. "No, but she's the only one thriving. The others, they weren't raised with love. They were studied, treated like experiments." Anna's voice turned sharp. "You mean they were taken?" "Yes." Anna stood, eyes wide with horror. "Are they going to come for her?" Kaminsky lowered her gaze. "There are people, organizations, that would give anything to control someone like Hannah. That's why I walked away from all of it years ago. But now that her story is out there, they know." Anna hugged Hannah tighter. "What do we do?" Jordan asked, entering the room behind them. Kaminsky looked between them. "You teach her, you love her, you raise her to be more than a miracle. Because if she's as powerful as I believe, she might be the only one who can decide what kind of future this world has. A name to protect." From that day forward, everything changed. They installed new security systems. They moved her pediatric visits off the books. Kaminsky helped erase every digital trace of Hannah's medical records from public databases, and Anna made a decision she never thought she'd make. She would homeschool Hannah, at least for now. She wasn't just trying to protect her daughter from the world. She was trying to protect the world from what her daughter might become, a glimpse of what's to come. On Hannah's first birthday, there were no balloons, no loud parties, just the three of them, a small chocolate cake and a single candle. Anna held Hannah's hand as she helped her blow it out. Jordan took a photo, and for one fleeting second, the lights flickered. The temperature in the room dropped. The candle blew out without her breath. Jordan looked at Anna. Anna looked at Hannah. And Hannah, she just smiled again. That same smile she'd given in the hospital. Wide, calm, like she already knew something they didn't. The girl who could not be hidden. Time moved fast in the Willis household. By the time Hannah Grace turned 4, she had already surpassed the height of most 7-year-olds, and her strength. Unbelievable. But it wasn't just her size that startled people. It was her mind. She read at a 5th grade level, could solve logic puzzles in minutes, and once corrected a mechanic's error while he worked on her father's truck. Jordan had laughed, shaking his head. "You're going to outsmart us all before you lose your baby teeth." But Anna didn't laugh. She watched, she listened, and she feared. Because even at home, strange things kept happening. Lights flickering when Hannah was upset. Objects moving slightly when she focused on them too hard. Once, during a tantrum, every mirror in the house cracked at the same time. Kaminsky had seen it too. "She's not psychic," the old doctor had said quietly. "It's not telekinesis either. I think she's developing something new, something connected to emotion. Stress. Protection, maybe." But no matter how much they tried to contain her world within the walls of their home, the time eventually came when Hannah had to face the outside. And the outside wasn't ready. The first day, Anna clutched Hannah's small backpack so tightly her knuckles turned white. The community center had opened a new early learning program. Small groups, carefully screened teachers, and most importantly, off-limits to media. Kaminsky had vetted it herself. Still, Anna's stomach churned as she kissed Hannah goodbye. "You remember what we talked about?" she asked, kneeling to eye level. Hannah nodded solemnly. "Be gentle. Stay quiet. Don't lift heavy stuff in front of people." Anna forced a smile. "That's right, baby." Jordan stepped forward. "And if anyone makes you feel weird or bad, you don't hide it. You tell us, okay?" "Okay." But before she walked away, Hannah added something else. "And if something bad happens, should I still protect people?" Anna paused. "Of course. But what if it shows who I am?" Jordan crouched down beside them both. "Hannah," he said carefully, "who you are. That's not something to be ashamed of. Ever. But the world doesn't always understand people like you. So until they do, we move quietly. Okay?" She nodded. But deep inside, something else stirred in Hannah's chest. She didn't want to hide anymore. Whispers in the hallway. From the moment she walked into the classroom, Hannah stood out. She was taller than every other kid, even some of the teachers. Her backpack looked comically small. Her voice was calm and clear when the others still spoke with toddler-like babble. Some kids were curious, others were scared. "Why is she so big?" a boy whispered. "She talks weird," a girl giggled. "She's not normal." Hannah heard every word, but she said nothing. Instead, she took her seat in the corner and began to quietly trace the edges of her worksheet, the corners folding into tiny origami stars without her even noticing. That's when she met Sophie Lay. Sophie was tiny, fragile, glasses slipping down her nose. She didn't talk much, and no one seemed to notice when she sat alone at lunch. Except Hannah. "You don't talk much either," Sophie said one day. Hannah shrugged. "They already stare. Why give them more?" Sophie smiled a little. "They stare at me too." "Why?" "Because I shake when I get nervous." Hannah blinked. "I could hold your hand. Would that help?" Sophie nodded. "Yeah, I think it might." And from that moment on, Hannah wasn't alone anymore. The playground incident. It happened 3 weeks into the program. Recess. The sky was overcast, the ground damp from last night's rain. The kids were playing tag while teachers sipped coffee from thermoses and tried to keep everyone from climbing too high on the jungle gym. Sophie had been trying to climb the steps, slowly, carefully, when one of the older boys pushed past her. "Move, shaky legs," he laughed, bumping her aside. She slipped. Sophie screamed. The fall wasn't far, maybe 5 feet, but her head was aimed directly toward the edge of a concrete platform. Time slowed. Before anyone could move, before any adult could react, Hannah was there. She moved faster than anyone had ever seen. 1 second she was near the sandbox. The next, she had crossed the yard, caught Sophie mid-fall, and landed on her knees, cushioning her with her own body. Gasps echoed around the playground. A teacher dropped her cup. Sophie clutched Hannah, sobbing. "You caught me," she cried. "I wasn't going to let you get hurt," Hannah whispered. But it wasn't just the speed that shocked them. It was what happened next. The teacher rushed over, frantic. "Is she okay? Are you okay?" And that's when they all saw it. The concrete where Hannah had landed. Cracked. Split right down the middle. Under her knees. Damage control. The school director called Anna within minutes. "I don't know how to explain what I just saw," the woman said breathlessly. She moved like lightning. And then the pavement just split. Anna's chest went cold. "We're not accusing her of anything," the director added quickly. "She saved that little girl. But parents are talking. We need to understand." Anna packed her things, called Jordan, and raced to the school. By the time they arrived, there were already whispers in the parking lot. One parent was filming with her phone. Another was angrily questioning staff about whether that girl was dangerous. They took Hannah home that afternoon. She sat quietly in the back seat, clutching Sophie's crumpled friendship bracelet in her hand. "I'm sorry," she whispered. "You did the right thing," Anna said gently. "Then why is everyone scared?" Jordan didn't have an answer. Because deep down, he was starting to feel the fear too. The night visitor. That evening, while Hannah slept, there was a knock on the door. Jordan opened it to find a man in a gray coat with federal ID. Behind him stood Kaminsky. Anna rushed forward. "What's going on?" The man introduced himself as Agent Cyrus Lang, Homeland Special Projects Division. "We've been monitoring Hannah's condition," he said. "Not publicly. Quietly. After today's incident, we can't stay quiet anymore." Anna's blood turned to ice. "What do you want?" "Protection. Observation. Research." "Absolutely not." But Kaminsky stepped in. "You need to listen. No more labs. No more files. She's a child." Cyrus nodded. And children with the potential to break concrete with their bare knees tend to attract unwanted attention. I'm not the only one who saw the footage. It's already on 2 fringe sites. We can help you keep it from going viral. Jordan stared at him. At what cost? Agent Lang looked them both in the eye. "She's not the only one," he said finally. "And when the others come looking for her, you're going to wish you had help." The question that changed everything. After they left, Anna sat on the edge of Hannah's bed. The little girl was awake. Of course she was. She always knew when something was wrong. "Are they going to take me away?" she asked softly. Anna's heart broke. "No, sweetheart. Never. I would never let that happen." Hannah was quiet for a moment. Then she looked up, her eyes serious, older than they should have been. "Mommy, am I a monster?" Anna shook her head so fast her vision blurred. No, baby. You're a miracle. But I make people scared." Anna kissed her forehead. "People get scared of things they don't understand. That doesn't make you wrong. It makes them blind." "But what if I'm dangerous?" Anna held her tighter. "Then we'll teach you to be the kind of dangerous that protects. the kind that heals, the kind that changes the world. Hannah looked down at her hand, the same hand that had split concrete. And then she whispered, "I'll be careful." The shift. The next morning, the media showed up again. Despite Lang's best efforts, a blurry video had leaked. The footage showed Hannah running, barefoot, fast as lightning, before the screen shook and cut off. The headline was simple: "Superhuman child saves girl." But who is she? Anna didn't answer the door. She didn't answer her phone. Instead, she packed bags. Kaminsky arrived mid-morning with an encrypted phone, a burner laptop, and a file of safe locations. "It's starting," she said grimly. "And if we don't move now, it won't stop." Jordan carried Hannah to the car. "Are we going on a trip?" she asked. Anna forced a smile. "Yes, a big adventure." "Where?" "Somewhere safe." Hannah looked out the window as they drove away. The trees blurred past, the town faded behind them, and in the reflection of the glass she saw herself. Still just a little girl, but becoming something more. Nowhere and everywhere. The safe house was colder than Hannah expected. It wasn't just the mountain air that chilled her, it was the silence. The way every step echoed on the wooden floors. The way the shadows stretched long through the old windows at night. The way her parents whispered when they thought she was asleep. They'd been there for 2 weeks. An old ranger's cabin buried deep in the Oregon forest, hours from the nearest gas station. No neighbors, no cell service, no connection to the world they used to know. For most kids, it would have felt like a camping adventure. For Hannah, it felt like a cage. Unlearning childhood. The days were long. Homeschool lessons in the morning. Meditation and breathing exercises in the afternoon. Kaminsky's idea to help Hannah control the surges, as she called them. They trained in the woods behind the house, far from anyone who might see her lifting boulders or leaping 20 feet without a running start. Jordan built a swing from an old tree branch. Anna painted the walls of the cabin with flowers and stars. They tried to make it feel like home. But no matter what they did, Hannah felt different. Because the truth was finally sinking in. She wasn't like other kids. Not even close. The cracked world. One night, Hannah woke from a dream gasping. Not crying. Not screaming. Just wide-eyed, heart-pounding, drenched in sweat. She had seen something. A hallway of glass. Rows of children behind walls. Machines. Tubes. Needles. And a voice whispering, "She's the next stage." She ran to the bathroom to splash water on her face. But as she stared into the cracked mirror over the sink, she saw something that didn't belong. Her reflection blinked before she did. She stumbled back, her breath caught in her throat. The glass shimmered, just for a second, then returned to normal. She didn't sleep the rest of the night. The woman in the woods. The next morning, Hannah asked if she could go for a walk alone. Anna hesitated, but Kaminsky nodded. Let her. She needs space. With her boots on and a warm jacket, Hannah wandered into the forest, following a path she hadn't taken before. The trees were massive here, towering redwoods that felt like ancient guardians. Birds scattered as she passed. Squirrels stilled on branches, watching her with wide, silent eyes. Half a mile in, she saw her. A woman. Pale, standing barefoot in the snow between 2 trees. She wore a tattered shawl and had silver hair braided down her back. "You're not hiding very well," the woman said. Hannah froze. "Who are you?" The woman smiled. "Someone who's been waiting for you." "Why?" "Because you're not the only one." She reached out and touched the bark of a tree. It shimmered for a second, like the mirror had. Then she was gone, vanished into thin air. Hannah turned and ran, her heartbeat like thunder in her ears. When she told her parents, they dismissed it as a dream. But Kaminsky didn't. She pulled Hannah aside that evening. "Can you show me exactly where?" "The gate that shouldn't exist." They went back the next morning. Kaminsky tracked the footsteps, measured the ground, scanned the trees. Nothing unusual. Until she found it. A series of markings, etched deep into the bark of the trees. Not carved. Burned. In perfect geometric shapes. Too perfect for nature. Too ancient for modern science. Kaminsky crouched and touched one. Her fingers recoiled. "It's warm," she whispered. "What is it?" Hannah asked. Kaminsky stared into the woods, her voice low. "A signal." Whispers of others. That night, Kaminsky sat with Anna and Jordan while Hannah slept. She saw someone. Kaminsky said, "I don't think it was human. At least, not fully." Anna paled. "You said she wasn't the only one. Do you mean more like her?" "I mean," Kaminsky said slowly, "there are others who may have evolved along similar lines. People born with anomalies, strength, speed, heightened senses, maybe 1 in a billion. But they don't survive because they're seen as threats." Jordan frowned. "Then why did Hannah survive?" Kaminsky looked toward the bedroom. "Because you loved her. You didn't treat her like a weapon." The storm returns. The next few days were quiet again. Too quiet. Hannah drew the woman in her journal, sketched the symbols on the tree. She couldn't explain it, but something in her was humming, like a wire pulled too tight. Then, one night, it happened again. The lights flickered. The air turned cold, and a low hum filled the cabin, like a generator just beneath the floorboards. Kaminsky bolted upright. "They found us." Anna grabbed Hannah. "What do we do?" Jordan looked out the window. Nothing but black trees and snow. And then, boom! A pulse shook the cabin. The windows vibrated. A streak of light zipped across the sky and vanished behind the ridge. Kaminsky shouted, "Go, get the emergency pack." Hannah stood still, frozen. Because this time, she didn't feel afraid. She felt called. "What's out there?" They packed quickly and headed into the woods. Kaminsky led the way, flashlight bouncing. "I think it was a drone," she said. "Military grade. Scouting tech. Not public. Not safe." Jordan carried a thermal bag with medical supplies and hard drives. Anna held Hannah's hand, squeezing tighter than she should have. And then, they found it. A crater. Still steaming. At the center, a metal sphere, no larger than a soccer ball. Kaminsky cursed under her breath. "That's not from here." "Is it dangerous?" Anna asked. "I don't know yet." Then the sphere opened, and a hologram flickered to life. The message. A voice, calm, female, but layered with static, filled the woods. Subject, Hannah Grace. Detected anomaly signature. Sequence recognized. Awaiting extraction. Kaminsky stepped forward. "Turn it off. Now." But Hannah was already walking toward it. "Hannah!" Anna shouted. She ignored them. She reached out and touched the hologram. It glowed brighter, and the voice shifted. Signature confirmed. Catalyst located. Phase 1 initiated. Then the sphere powered down. Dead silent. No one spoke. Kaminsky knelt beside it. This wasn't just a drone. It was a beacon. Hannah looked at her parents. "I think they're trying to find me. Not to hurt me, but to wake me up." The real question. Later that night, while Kaminsky buried the beacon deep beneath the frozen ground, Hannah asked the question no one wanted to hear. "Am I human?" Anna's voice broke. "Of course you are. But what if I'm not just human?" Jordan pulled her close. "It doesn't matter. You're ours, and we love you." But deep inside, they all knew the truth was bigger. She wasn't just theirs anymore. She belonged to something larger, something ancient, something watching. And the countdown had begun. The choice that defines us. The snow had stopped falling. But the silence it left behind was heavier than ever. In the small cabin tucked deep in the Oregon forest, Hannah Grace sat alone in front of the fireplace, knees to her chest, eyes locked on the darkened metal sphere that had arrived days earlier. It hadn't moved, hadn't spoken, but it didn't need to. Hannah could feel it, pulling her thoughts like gravity. She didn't need words anymore. She just knew. She wasn't like other children. She never had been. Because deep within her cells, in the very fabric of her DNA, a key had been placed, one that unlocked a door no human mind had dared approach. And the lock was turning. Revelations in the dark. Kaminsky returned from a secure call late that night. Her face was pale, her voice tighter than usual. "I tapped into an old defense database," she said. "That sphere. It's not military. It's extraterrestrial adjacent." Anna's breath caught. "What does that mean?" "It means," Kaminsky said slowly, "someone, or something, sent it, not to retrieve her, not to destroy her, but to activate her." Jordan shook his head. "She's a child." "No," Kaminsky whispered. "She's a signal. The other side of silence." At dawn, Hannah woke up before everyone else. The forest was coated in silver mist. Frost covered the porch railings. She walked barefoot into the cold without flinching. Her skin no longer reacted the way it used to. She couldn't feel the cold. The frost melted beneath her feet, and in the stillness of morning she heard it. Voices, not with her ears, with her mind. Soft, ancient, echoes of a language she was beginning to remember, even though no one had ever taught it to her. She followed the whispers into the woods until she reached the tree with the burned symbols. They glowed now, dimly. She placed her hand against the bark, and the forest changed. The arrival. Back at the cabin, the sky cracked open. A streak of pure white light pierced the clouds, slower than lightning, but brighter than the sun. It hovered above the treetops, a sphere much larger than the one from before. Kaminsky ran outside, heart pounding. Anna and Jordan grabbed Hannah's emergency pack, eyes wide. But Hannah didn't move, because she knew. "It's not here to take me," she said. "It's here to ask." Kaminsky grabbed her arm. "Hannah, listen to me. Whatever this is, it's not human. It doesn't care about your family. It only cares about what's inside you." But Hannah turned to her. "That's where you're wrong," she said, "because what's inside me is human. The choice." The light descended until it hovered above the clearing. A beam of energy connected it to the ground. And then, a figure appeared. Not alien, not mechanical. A woman. Tall, pale-skinned, robed in deep blue light. Her eyes shimmered like glass. Her hair floated in slow motion, as if underwater. Hannah stepped forward. No fear, no hesitation. The woman spoke without moving her lips. "You have awakened." Hannah nodded. "Do you understand what you are?" "I'm a bridge," she said, "between what was and what's coming." The woman tilted her head, almost curious. "The others failed. You survived. Why?" Hannah looked back at her family. "My parents didn't try to change me. They loved me. Love is inefficient. Love is human." Hannah stepped closer. "And I am too." The woman paused. "You can leave this world. Come with us. Unlock your full potential. Learn what you are meant to become." Hannah looked down at her hands, felt the power humming through her veins, the ability to bend metal, shatter stone, move faster than sight. Then she looked back at Anna, at Jordan, at Kaminsky. No, the word was small, but it shattered everything. The power of refusal. The woman's glow pulsed. "You would turn down everything we offer. You would choose weakness." "I choose life," Hannah said. "I choose growth. I choose to belong. Not to power. Not to perfection. But to love. That's where I'm strongest." "Then you will never reach your full form." "I already have," she whispered. She closed her eyes, and for the first time, released the power inside her. The unleashing. The ground quaked. The trees bent backward. The air turned white. Anna screamed and covered her face. Jordan fell to one knee. Kaminsky gasped and dropped her tablet. Above the cabin, a dome of golden light burst outward from Hannah's body, pushing back the ship, lifting the clouds, filling the forest with a roar of warmth and sound. The symbols on the tree exploded in blue fire, then vanished. The woman in the beam flickered, once, then again, before finally disappearing entirely. And the sky was calm. Aftermath. For hours, Hannah didn't speak. She sat on the porch, feet swinging above the frost-covered steps, watching the forest return to silence. Anna sat beside her. "Are you okay?" Hannah nodded slowly. "I felt everything," she said. "Everything I could be. Everything they wanted. It was beautiful, but it was hollow." Jordan joined them. "What now?" Hannah looked at the sky. "I don't think they'll try again. They wanted a weapon, but I gave them a heart. Home again." Months passed. The forest thawed. Spring returned. Hannah began to laugh more. Her growth slowed. The lights no longer flickered. The mirror stayed whole. Kaminsky filed one final report, off-grid, encoded and buried in a server only a few trusted allies could find. Subject: AG001. Status: stable. Origin: unknown. Result: human first integration successful. Recommendation: do not interfere. Let her choose her path. And she did. She chose books over battles, compassion over control. She started drawing again. And one day, while watching the sunset, she turned to Anna and asked, "Do you think people will ever stop being afraid of different?" Anna smiled softly. "No, baby. But maybe, with you around, they'll learn how to understand it." Legacy of Light. At age 7, Hannah Grace saved a boy from drowning by running across a frozen lake without breaking the surface. At age 10, she spoke at a global youth summit about identity, love, and choosing kindness over fear. By 14, she was helping teach other gifted children how to control their emotions, their strength, their fears. Not in a lab, not behind glass, but as a girl, a daughter, a friend. The world never found out exactly who or what Hannah Grace was. And that was the point, because she didn't want to be a headline. She wanted to be hope.